Hello guys, David here, founder of SuperThread, and welcome to my devlog. In this devlog, I'll be giving you a tutorial on how to use flowchart diagrams. Now, flowchart diagrams are very important when it comes to defining how processes work inside of systems. At SuperThread, we use flowchart diagrams for absolutely everything. If I was to actually go ahead and write textual instructions for each process inside of SuperThread, it would be very difficult for developers and designers to understand as to what's going on. This is why flowchart diagrams are very important. Now, when it comes to drawing flowchart diagrams, you can actually draw them on a piece of paper, or you can use a tool called Draw.io, which is a tool which has been around for many years. But currently I use Miro, which is a real-time tool, which means that my colleagues can be inside of the actual same diagram at the same time. So I can actually see their cursor moving in real time, and I can add and edit objects together with them at the same time. And I find that the tool is quite good when it comes to flowchart diagrams. What I'm going to do now is show you an example of how we use flowchart diagrams inside of SuperThread, and then I'm going to give you a small tutorial on how to do a simple flowchart diagram for, let's say, signing onto a system. So without further ado, let's get to it. So here's a simple flowchart diagram that we use inside of SuperThread. This is for editing a comment. So you start here on the left-hand side, and then you kind of end here on the right-hand side. That's the normal way in which I do it. There are many different shapes which you can use for flowchart diagrams, but I'll be just sticking to very simple shapes here. One is for start and end. It has kind of rounded corners. One is a question type shape, and one is a kind of rectangular process type shape. And that's basically all you need for most cases. So if we go through this diagram here, it's for editing a comment. So imagine, for example, you have an API endpoint through which you edit a comment. And you start on the left-hand side. The system tries to determine whether you are actually the comment creator, and if you are, you can actually go ahead and edit the comment. If you're not, the system says you cannot edit this comment, and then we end here. As I will show you now, this is not the only diagram we have for actual permissions inside of SuperThread. So if you just zoom out, you see I have many diagrams, okay? And these diagrams define more or less every kind of workflow inside of SuperThread, and a developer, whatever they happen to be working on, they can actually go inside of here and check how things should be working. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to create a new board. This is inside of Miro once again. And actually I'm going to choose a flowchart diagram template, which is at the bottom here. And it gives you a little bit of a template here. And as you can see, we have one with the rounded corners, which is start and end. But let's actually delete most of these because we don't need them. And let's change this color to be something nicer. So as I said, I prefer kind of green. And then if you actually click on an object inside of Miro and do a Command or Control D, it actually duplicates the object. And I'm going to duplicate start and change it to end. And actually I'm going to give it a different color to indicate that we've reached an end of the actual process. The action, again, you can change a color. Let's change it to a purple one. You can change text color as well, which is white now. And this is the decision shape, or we can change that to kind of blue. Okay, cool. So you can also give it a nice title. Let's give it a title here at the top. You can just hit on text and we can say login flowchart. Okay, and you can actually increase text, something more visible, and maybe a bit more. All right, let's zoom out. You can zoom out by holding Command and then using your wheel on your mouse. You can select things by holding Shift and selecting it and moving it down. So here we are. Let's delete these arrows and let's use these shapes as templates at the bottom here, okay? Let's leave start and end left and right. You can also, if you just move them up and down, they kind of align, they snap into place. Okay, so the first question we can ask is, are you logged in? Okay, and we can draw an arrow by hitting this icon here, and we can just drag and drop this arrow. Also, you can edit the arrow itself. You can, let's say, increase the actual thickness of the arrow. Okay, are you logged in? And then we can say yes or no. So if you are actually logged in, we can just draw a new arrow here, and we can say, we can rename this object here to home page. Okay, and we can put text inside of this arrow. We can say yes. We can increase the size of this text a bit, something like, let's say 48, maybe a bit less. Okay, cool. So if you're logged in, you go straight to home page. There's nothing to do here. Okay. If you're not logged in, we want to ask another question. How do you want to log in? So let's duplicate this object here, and we can say, how do you want to log in? We can draw an arrow from are you logged in to how do you want to log in? And that's if you are not logged in. We can say no. So if you're not logged in, you're presented with this kind of option. How do you want to log in? Okay. And then there's two ways of logging in, imagine. So there's like, you can log in via Google or log in via email. And then we can draw two arrows here. One is Google and one is email. Let's actually make it a bit more interesting. Let's check whether the login is successful. We can do another decision here. We can call it login worked. Okay. Let's actually expand the diagram a bit. So let's draw two arrows leading to this question. Okay. And then if the logins worked, we want to check whether the user has done the tutorial. For example, we can say complete the tutorial. So if they have completed the tutorial, we can just say take them to home page and say yes. If not, we can actually duplicate this guy here and say do the tutorial. Okay, so we can draw a line here. And then after they do the tutorial, they can actually go to home page. And then we can draw a line here. Okay, so like that. So has the login worked? And this is a line from here to here. And say yes. And if the login has not worked, we need to take them back to the login screen. So it's actually, it's not really nice when the lines cross. So kind of you need to, if actually you find that the lines are crossing over one another, what you want to do is make sure that you go through the diagram again and make sure they're not. Okay, so I'll draw a line from here. So probably. So if the login has not worked, you want to kind of get them to try and log in again. Okay. So let's actually go through this diagram. I've just come up with this diagram on the fly. I didn't prepare for it or anything. And let's get rid of this template here. We don't need it anymore. So basically you start, the system checks whether you logged in. If you have, it can take you straight to the home page. Actually, it shouldn't take you straight to the home page. It should take you to check whether you actually completed the tutorial. So let's take you there. Yes. Okay, so you start here. The system asks, are you logged in? If yes, have you completed the tutorial, which takes you actually here. It takes you to the actual home page. If not, it makes you actually do the tutorial and then it takes you to the home page. Okay, that's if you're logged in. If you're not, the system asks you, how do you want to log in? Then you choose Google or email. And then when you choose one way of logging in, it actually checks whether the login has worked. If it hasn't, it takes you back to the actual login screen. If it has, it asks you, the system checks whether you've actually completed the tutorial. And if you have completed the tutorial, it takes you to the home page. If not, it makes you actually do the tutorial. So this is a simple flowchart diagram, which actually depicts a simple kind of login procedure inside of a system. And that's all there is to it. So you can use these three simple shapes, which is basically start and an end, which are kind of have rounded corners. You can have a process, which is basically a rectangular shape. And you can have the question, which is a diamond type shape. And in fact, that's all you actually need to actually do anything inside of flowchart diagrams. We find flowchart diagrams very, very useful. So if you guys use flowchart diagrams, you perhaps want to comment as to how you use them, how important they are for you. What tools do you use to create flowchart diagrams? We really look forward to hearing from you guys. And that's the end of this video, and I'll see you guys in our next video.